A very good day to you all. We're back after another month or so. Due to the response and to the ease of which we did the last episode with the bonus content and the flow of that, we have decided to now go weekly so that we can talk about more stuff, and of course so that we have time to do the full recommendation. If we have to read a big long book, or if we have to watch a TV show, we have a little bit more space, a little bit more time. We'll fill you in over the course of 4 episodes, and we'll still have the big recommendation once a month where we talk about whatever was swapped through Pop Swap.
Yeah, but, we hopefully we'll give you a lot more content, won't we, this way?
Yeah.
And like I say, it'll just be a bit more relaxed way of doing things that we don't have to worry about panicking to cram as much as we can into one episode, and also leave you all hanging, kind of waiting for when we have our delays. Hopefully that all can end now and we can give you as much content as possible.
Yeah, we're a little delayed this time because I had to move apartment. So there was a bit of argy-bargy, and not argy-bargy. What's the word I'm looking for? A little bit of logistics, life thing getting in the way. But anyway, we're back and we're going to go weekly, and we're going to talk about all the stuff that we do rather than cram it into 45 minutes once a month. So, Dean, how should we start this episode off now? Little disclaimer before I pass the torch on to you. Obviously, with the move and all of that, I was only able to watch a season and a half of *Halt and Catch Fire*, the previous recommendation. So we're going to save that for when I'm entirely finished, and that'll be maybe in a couple of weeks. Or in a week, now that I'm all settled, I can blast through it. But
give everyone else a bit of time as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was actually going to mention that you actually encountered a bit of technical difficulty as well with that, didn't you? Because I went and mentioned that it was available on Amazon Prime Video, who are not our official sponsors, even though we keep mentioning them all the time. But unfortunately, they dragged that off of Amazon Prime Video of October of last year, and I'd watched it well before that. So that was a bit frustrating, to say the least. But yes, you've still managed to get hold of it to watch, and hopefully for you guys out there, you managed to source it from somewhere else as well.
You can still rent it on Prime, but you have to buy it through your account and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going that route because I've had a bit of difficulty streaming it online. It keeps stopping and starting, and downloads aren't working. So yeah, I'm going that route.
Yeah.
Anyway, shall we talk about other things we've been experiencing over the last month?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Do you want me to kick off? Or
go for it.
Anything in mind? Okay. So where do I begin? I guess I could mention some documentaries I've watched lately.
Very cool.
On the BBC, available on the BBC iPlayer. And the first one is part of the Storyville series, which is like an ongoing series of documentaries that BBC have been making for years. This one's titled Whirlybird, Live Above LA.
Cool.
And it kind of tells the story of this journalist husband and wife couple during the 80s and 90s in Los Angeles, who I think they were kind of pioneers. They sort of invest in a helicopter really early on before anyone else starts to do this. I think they see the police using the helicopters flying around the city, and they decide to invest in helicopters and take their cameras out there and start shooting breaking news footage around the city. Cool. And the documentary itself, it's kind of made up from aerial footage that they shot at the time, along with talking head interviews with the couple, kind of exploring their relationship in quite a sort of moving and tragic way. It kind of treads some quite complex areas around the fact that this isn't a spoiler, but that the husband transitioned and is now a trans woman, present day. And it talks about like how he kind of expressed his aggression. When he was a male, he was sort of expressed a lot of aggression to other people in his life when he was living as a man, and how she sort of deals with that now. from like her point of view as she's living her life now. So it's quite heartbreaking at times. It's quite a tough watch, but there's quite an exciting sort of zippy energy to it at the beginning. It's quite an exciting watch. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the atmosphere of like the movie Nightcrawler a little bit.
Oh yeah, cool.
With them kind of like going out of the city at night and some of the crazy stuff that goes on. And I actually think Nightcrawler was roughly inspired by I think it was I'm sure I saw a Vice documentary that was like a short on Vice that was about a guy that goes out doing exactly the same type of job that Jake Gyllenhaal's character does in Nightcrawler. And I think it was influenced by that. But yes,
it was Tony Gilroy that wrote that movie, wasn't it? Wrote and directed
it was, yeah.
Movie. He's good. I really like him.
He is good.
He's one to watch. So what other documentaries were you?
Yeah, sorry, that one was great and well worth checking out. And the other one was, I think I've mentioned him to you before, actually, the filmmaker Adam Curtis.
Yeah.
Documentarian. And his latest series is called Can't Get You Out of My Head.
Okay.
And if you've never seen any of his work before, anyone listening, then he kind of uses footage from the BBC archive along with like some really interesting music choices and editing choices. And he kind of narrates these films that tend to explore like things like social behaviour and historical events and all these different aspects of like culture and politics. And but he does it in a really engaging way. And his documentaries, I don't know, they're kind of, this one in particular, it sort of tends to focus on ideas that kind of explore like our psychological and social kind of how that side of our lives and our political lives have sort of brought us all to a place where I guess technology sort of failed us in the way it hoped to kind of like liberate society in the way we might have hoped it would have done.
Yeah.
And he kind of like, he presents this idea that maybe we need a new myth or a collective story as a way of saving ourselves from the mess that we've sort of landed ourselves in.
Right.
But he kind of does that in a really interesting way, like the rest of his films. When you see them, he kind of stitches together lots of varying stories of lots of different fascinating people and ideas, and he kind of like brings them all together into one big narrative in a really smart way.
There was
he's great.
A guy you recommended I watch one time was a similar, just reminded me, what was his name? He was talking about the dangers of social media. Was it that kind of vibe or just more based on technology rather than...
Jared Lanier, is it?
Yes, Jared Lanier, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it that kind of...
Similar-ish, yeah. So he taps into some of the issues that I guess he taps into some similar things to do with technology, but I don't know. Like Adam Curtis doesn't really sort of focus strictly on technology. It's like the much bigger picture of like a lot of things. Like say, it explores like social behaviour and explores psychology and explores lots of aspects of history and politics and economics and stuff, but not in a way that's like. Sort of feels like it's a heavy slug to digest. It's like because he makes the films the way that he makes them.
Yeah.
If anything, the stuff that like really sticks with me after I've watched his stuff, it's not so much the ideas that are presented, though they are absolutely fascinating. It's more like just like the audio visual experience of watching them. Sometimes there's like he just manages to pair really interesting footage with really interesting music at times.
Yeah.
And he creates these really memorable moments that just kind of stay with you afterwards. And bizarrely, like it wasn't something I picked up on until I started watching that recent one. But I've noticed also he's got an unusual fascination with dancing. Like he always seems to put in footage of people throughout history dancing at some stage into the documentaries. And I don't know if he's aware that he's doing it, but
like Tarantino with feet.
Yeah, it's just he must be fascinated with dance, and I'm not sure if he's that's a conscious choice or not. But that's always in his stuff. But I think I told you to start off with him watching The Century of the Self, which is a good place to start. And after that, maybe The Power of Nightmares. After that is another good one as well. But
From what I gather
Great.
from how you talk about him, is he's just a very visual storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
So like, he'll present a certain idea, like I'm just guessing, he'll present a certain idea, but then not exactly beat you over the head with it, but he'll present them in a very kind of visual way so you can see whatever you want to see in it, I guess. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's definitely moments that are quite abstract where they're not even really connected so much to maybe some of the bigger ideas that are being explored or sort of spoken about in the rest of the footage. But like he just has these little departures, these little moments where it's just about making you feel something. And I think like that, unlike a lot of his stuff, because when you hear his voice, if you're listening to him, and I guess if you were from anywhere else, like if you weren't like my background, like as a Brit listening to him, he's got like this very well spoken sort of like British intellectual kind of like delivery, just how he sounds.
Right.
But there's this really subversive like quality to the work that he makes, and he's got quite a punky sort of attitude into the stuff that he puts together, and he kind of like seems like, say, to really focus on the actual feeling of watching something as much as the ideas that are being fed into your head. Like that matters as much to him, like when you're watching his stuff. But yeah, he's great. So well worth checking out on BBC iPlayer if you got the time to look at those.
So,
how about you? Sorry.
Those two documentaries, what were the names again?
Sorry, to recap on them. Yeah, so Storyville series on BBC iPlayer, and it was called Whirlybird, Live Above LA.
Oh, yeah.
And then Can't Get You Out of My Head.
Cool.
And I think the BBC archive have started to archive a lot of Adam Curtis's work as well, so you can get Hypernormalization and Bitter Lake. They're all on there as well to check out.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that's me anyway. What about yourself? What have you been checking out?
So I guess during the move, I kind of parked the recommendation you gave me for a little bit, and while packing in the background, we basically binged the entirety of The Office. So it's basically what I've been doing for the last month.
The UK office or American office?
The American one.
Okay.
The UK one is a touch too dark and cringe for my taste, even though I very much like Ricky Gervais. And I don't know why I'd never gotten around to The Office, but it's great. It definitely dips. It definitely dips in quality the later it goes, but the early seasons are fantastic. Steve Carell, genius. Absolute genius. And what I really like about the show is not only like, the themes, the office behavioral quirks, the idiosyncrasies of people in a tight little working space, but the fact that it's such a small team that do it. So the producers, the writers, the showrunners, it's all the same people, and they all do a bit of everything. So like Mindy Kaling, for example, was a writer for most of the run of the show, but also played one of the characters. I just found out last week that the actor that plays Toby, who's the HR guy, was a showrunner for 4 seasons, an executive producer for the whole thing, and a writer for all 9 seasons. So I was like, that's pretty impressive.
All right. So that was like his training ground for his work as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
He did A Quiet Place, didn't he, after that, yeah?
No, that's John Krasinski.
Am I thinking of someone else and getting mixed up?
So John Krasinski plays Jim, and he also directed a couple episodes, and that was where all of these people kind of honed their craft, which I thought was cool, because I'm a big fan of the Apatow crew. So all the that team that make those comedies, seemingly all got their start in and around The Office, which I didn't really realize. So like Mindy Kaling as well. Another name I kept seeing was Paul Feig, who directed Bridesmaids, and obviously worked with Judd Apatow on that film. He directed probably 90% of the first 2 seasons, and carried on as well. But I just kept seeing his name, especially around season 2 or 3. I kept seeing his name, which I think is pretty cool. But it has that small family vibe, and it translates into the show. So even though I know maybe some people may prefer the British one, or depending on your sensibilities, you might prefer one or the other. I think for my current mood, the American one definitely suited me down to the ground. But it also has the best. I'm going to make a statement here. It has the best on-screen romance I have ever seen. It has the best written on-screen romance I have ever seen. Jim and Pam are exceptionally well written and brilliantly acted as well. So the 2 actors, John Krasinski and Jenna Fisher, have amazing chemistry. And it starts off quite like a very realistic office, bit of flirtation back and forth. They do random things together. Jim is kind of he doesn't really care. So he's just there to earn a paycheck, and he's very relatable. I feel like he's the most us character, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And Jenna Fisher plays Pam, who's the receptionist, and they kind of sit facing each other from at a distance, And Jim likes to play pranks, and she gets in on it, and they have little back and forth, and it's all very natural. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't even feel like it's written, It feels, with the documentary style and the single camera shots, it feels real. It feels like you're watching 2 real people really grow into a relationship,
Mm-hmm. But that's actually a highlight for me. You mentioned there of the original, original UK version. Yeah. That's, to me, that's one of the highlights of that is that relationship as well. So I think they must be quite influenced by that.
That built out from, so like I know Martin Freeman played the equivalent.
Tim, yeah. And Dawn, is it? I think Dawn was the
right. Okay, so they took that relationship and
they've kind of translated that from the sounds of things, because I've not actually seen. I've seen a few episodes of the American one, but I've obviously seen all of the British one. But it sounds, because to me, like, despite maybe some of the things the show was more renowned for, which was, like you say, maybe that cringe nature of comedy and those iconic moments that get played back again and again. Like, for me, the highlight of like the strength of Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant's work is like that real believable sort of heart, that quality of it, where you've got those relationships that seem completely believable. And for me, like, that's what I loved about The Office, and Extras in particular as well. Like I that's even stronger for me, like for some of those moments that they managed to like really pull at your heartstrings, not in a crass sort of like cheesy way, in a genuine sort of way that you can believe. I don't think they get enough credit for that really as comedians, but that is their strength.
The only thing that puts me off the UK one, and I will go back and watch that now after I've seen this one, is that I read online and I see that, David Brent, that character, is just purely unlikable and purely a dick. Whereas Michael Scott, the American version, the American equivalent with Steve Carell, he starts off the exact same way, the same stereotypical, snide, sneaky, snaky little boss. He grows into someone who's just really lovable and kind of a bit stupid. Becomes almost a bit caricature-ish, but you really love him, And I feel like that maybe is what puts me off watching the UK version, because I don't have that hook in with the main character, But again, I could totally be prejudging it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, as David Brent sort of plays out. It's not a sense at the end that like you don't get that feeling of like, oh no, now I love this character, but you certainly feel sorry for him on quite a few occasions, because it just more plays out that like you become aware that his persona in the show is actually him being aware that he's being filmed.
Yeah.
So he's so self-conscious of the fact that a documentary is being made about him, that he it's his chance to like impress the viewers. He's like he's a failed in his head. He's a failed entertainer. He wants to be loved by people and liked by them, and he just overcompensates. And then you get these little glimpses beyond that where you see the real person underneath all that. And you feel quite sorry for that person, and you kind of get an understanding as to why he behaves like such a twat when you get those little moments in between. Yeah. But like it kind of, you have to go through it all to get a sense of that.
What I think then from what I read is that maybe that doesn't translate well to American audiences. That's the feeling that I get, you know, that maybe those little those moments of subtlety may not translate well to American audiences, because they just see the kind of crass British humor, if that's what it is. I don't know, but I totally want to go back, because as well the UK version is only 12 episodes, so I'm like, I'll watch that in like 30 minutes. But yeah, I've just been watching The Office, to be honest. There was one more show that I did start, and that was The Man in the High Castle on Amazon Prime.
Oh yeah, cool.
So basically what I've been doing during the move is just kind of comfort watching The Office and having a bit of a laugh. But The Man in the High Castle, we started it 2 days ago. We already finished season 1, and it's amazing.
Oh, great.
So obviously, just so people can get a gist of it, it's based on a book by Philip K. Dick, who is a very famous author. Predominantly does a bit of sci-fi. Would have written the original novels that inspired Blade Runner and several other projects. But The Man in the High Castle is about an alternate history, essentially, after World War II. So what if Germany won the war? What if the Axis powers won the war? And it's set in America, and America is now divided into basically the Japanese Empire, Pacific states, and the Greater Nazi Reich, which is on the East Coast. And then there's like a neutral zone in the middle. So you've got all these little interesting political divides going on. But what really amazes me is all the characters have complexity, and there's no one stereotypical villain, which is crazy when you have Nazis in the show. And I'm really impressed by it, because sometimes I find myself feeling sorry for the character that Rufus Sewell is playing. And I really like Rufus Sewell as an actor. I think he plays great villains. But his character in this is kind of tragic. And it feels sometimes like, well, this is what you know? It really makes you think of like, okay, well, some of these characters, especially the younger ones, don't know any other world. So they don't automatically know that Nazis are bad. This is just a world that they've grown up in, and it really plays with that in a fascinating way. So you have one of the lead characters is essentially a Nazi agent, and they're trying to track down these films that are being distributed like in secret by like the resistance. And in the films, you see an alternate world, which is our world, where the Allies won the war. And you get a woman whose sister is part of this, and then the sister is killed, and that's kickstarts the whole show. Now, the Nazi agent, you never know which side he's really on. The girl, you never know what she's going to do next. Her like boyfriend is dragged into all of this in a really tragic way. I'm not going to spoil anything, but you also like they play with him in a really interesting way where you don't know where he's going to go. So it's the kind of show that once it ends, you need to watch the next episode, which is all I want from a TV show. So in 2 days, I've watched the first 10 episodes. We started the first episode of season 2, and we're getting already a little bit of like potential elements of small bits of sci-fi. So maybe a little bit more Philip K. Dick than I initially.
Cool. Interesting.
Yeah. So there are some hints of sci-fi beginning, and I'm liking it a lot because it's not slapping you in the face. It's just very subtle elements that I'm not going to tell you, but you can see something else starting to bubble. But the best character is by far Rufus Sewell's character. He plays the Obergruppenführer, so the Nazi general, basically. And he's an excellent, excellent character because he's not as one-dimensional as those kinds of characters typically are in these kinds of shows or movies or whatever.
There you go.
But yeah.
Even Nazis are people too.
Even Nazis are people too. Yeah. Yeah. How about that?
Said no one ever.
Said Philip K. Dick. Right. So yeah, that's my last month has been quite uneventful in terms of content. I've been watching The Office, and I watched that 2 days ago. So the only other thing that I have to update you on is I read the first book of Invincible, which is a comic series, and the TV show or the animated series adaptation will be coming out next week on Amazon Prime. I feel like we're always promoting shit that's coming out on Amazon Prime. Why? I don't know. But I read the first book, and it's kind of a homage, tribute, parody of, we'll say, Spider-Man and Superman. But if the dad was a really narcissistic dick of a god, and it's pretty entertaining. It's standard so far, but I'm only the first book of 12, so I assume it'll play with those tropes and stereotypes, and then play it and mess it up as it goes on. But that's basically what I've been doing for the last month.
Nice.
What else was on the menu for today, Dino?
I could mention maybe some movies. I've been checking out some movies. Just a few recently. Not masterpieces by any means, but the first one, I guess I was quite surprised by, was Greenland, which is pretty much like your bog standard disaster pick, and it stars Gerard Butler, who, I don't know, he's never really grabbed me as an actor in his previous roles over the years, to be honest with you. I don't mind him, but he's just like, I find it hard to kind of engage with him much as a performer.
He's good at what he does.
He is, yeah.
But he chooses a lot of... Yeah, he chooses a lot of shit, to be fair.
Yeah, maybe just bad selections, but he does a good job in this of being like this sort of everyman figure.
Yeah.
Who's kind of like looking out for his family and stuff, and you kind of like, you buy into that, and you sort of think like, yeah, I want this guy to kind of get through this sort of end of the world scenario that he's in. Yeah. And it kind of like, it sort of plays out that scenario in a way like this sort of like apocalyptic scenario about like how the country itself might react to like what is a bit of a sci-fi cliche, like sort of meteorites coming to destroy the earth sort of thing.
Deep Impact, Armageddon type stuff.
That kind of thing. But it does do it in a way where you actually, I don't know, you kind of actually care about the characters, which is pretty refreshing for that type of thing. Because I genuinely expected it to be a pretty trashy experience when I was kind of reading up about it. And I just felt like switching my brain off and putting something like that on. But for me, it's like, I don't know, kind of like maybe one of the most enjoyable experiences, that type of thing I've seen since possibly Spielberg's War of the Worlds. Like it's a decent enough disaster film. It's not a masterpiece by any means.
Yeah.
But if you want to be entertained for a few hours and kind of watch the end of the world, then yeah, check it out. It's pretty good.
I saw the trailer, and I'm not gonna lie, I said, ugh.
Yeah,
But
it'll surprise you, I think.
I thought that it might be just a good thing to whack on if you're in those kind of moods of like, I don't want to watch something too heavy, too, where I don't have to think too much. Let's have a bit of a laugh and laugh at it or laugh with it. Yeah.
It's not really that even, because it's not bad. It's not bad or dumb. It's like when you watch it, it's not one of these ones where you laugh and go, this is like a cheesy B movie. Like it's actually, you actually care quite a bit, like say, about the characters and actually it spends enough time in an interesting way with its supporting characters that it kind of shows. What I liked about it is it almost shows like the idea of like in a crisis like that, the heroism of the fact of like these people who are in that moment not selfishly just thinking about themselves, they're actually like wanting to help other people. And then, because like the typical thing is like the selfish behavior is like everything goes to shit and the world's chaos and people are just all looking out for themselves. But it does have some nice little moments with these supporting characters where they do things to sort of show like the positive side of humanity a little bit, which I liked. The fact that they kind of spent a bit of time on the script to concentrate on that was good. Yeah, so worth checking out. And then the other one I thought I'd mention, only on the basis that it annoyed me so much, is called Run, Hide, Fight, which is basically Die Hard meets The Breakfast Club, which is pretty much the pitch I'm sure they gave for the movie Red Dawn when that got commissioned back in the 80s. But basically, it kind of takes the idea of a pretty sensitive subject, which is American school shootings, and it decides to take the angle of turning that into quite a entertaining, heroic story of like this young schoolgirl who stands up to her fellow armed schoolmates by picking up a weapon herself. And then she sort of lays down some good old-fashioned American gun-toting justice against the bad guys. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. What bugged me the most about it, to be honest with you, is the fact that it's actually it's really well made. Whoever's the people that have put this together have done a decent job of putting it together, and the acting's not too bad, and it is entertaining to watch. But that's what irritated me so much, is it kind of like massively misses the point of the issues that it's dealing with, and with the real issues at hand with that subject matter, and sort of facing the fact, in my opinion, and this might be a political statement, but if you didn't allow everyone to go around owning firearms in your country, then maybe you might have less school shootings taking place. And it doesn't
I think that's common sense.
Yeah, it doesn't really address that issue at all. Instead, the solution it presents you with is like, kids basically be prepared to fight back with more firepower. If you imagine yourself in this kind of absurd Hollywood scenario that the character's in, then you too might survive your next school shooting incident.
It's a very very common mentality in America, though. Just we can fight back the power, we can fight back the thing, and if you take up arms, like I think less guns is probably the answer.
Yeah. I mean, you've even got this scene. This perfectly gets my point across. You've even got this scene where like the heroine's army vet father, like he uses his like ex-sniper skills from the war to save his daughter's life at just the right moment. Like he sneaks past the police by like doing that thing where like you hide underneath the truck and cling onto the truck as it drives away. And then he kind of like sneaks out from underneath there, and then he finds himself a little spot out by a tree somewhere, and just at a moment where we're kind of watching his daughter have a confrontation and she's just about to get killed by the bad guy, he manages to just like see his head through the window and take off a shot, not knowing who he's shooting at. He just happens to like just shoot anyway, just hoping that like it's the head of a school child that is about to attack his daughter.
Then he walks off in slow motion and we all go, America, fuck yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It was like at that point that I expected like the Star Spangled Banner to play, and then you'd have this montage of like eagles soaring through the sky, and then the flag gets
Freedom!
raised.
Freedom!
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit fucking ridiculous, to be honest with you. Although, like, afterwards, I did a bit of research, and it came as no surprise to me, like, it turned out that this cinematic gem, right, was actually the first movie of Ben Shapiro's production company.
Oh, wow.
So,
that doesn't surprise me at all.
That kind of explains it a bit, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
Again, not to get too political, but still. Yeah, it kind of told me all I needed to know. It is what it is.
Yeah. You've actually just reminded me that I'm going to take it a bit less right-wing now. I did actually watch something new. I watched a film on Netflix called Moxie.
Right, okay.
Which I was at first put off watching because I saw the trailer and I was like, this is Booksmart, you know? And I just saw Booksmart. But we watched it, and when it started, I was very intrigued to learn that it's Amy Poehler's directorial debut. Which I really like Amy Poehler. And I think she wrote it as well. So I was like, oh, cool. Let's get into this. And it is a standard teen coming of age comedy. It's fun. It's fine. It doesn't do anything particularly new. But it's also a little bit aggravating because it does slap you in the face with its politics. Now, I hate going down this road. The movie is a very feminist film, and I like that it is. And I really like the message that it portrays. But there are one or two moments in the film that deal with certain sensitive subjects, for example, rape, that how it's handled in that moment, I really question, is that really the best thing to do here for that person and their mental health, you know? But watch the film, make up your own mind. Everything else surrounding the film, like the young girl that takes it upon herself to call out subtle sexism in school and not so subtle sexism in school, and then starts this movement kind of in the shadows in the background, is very cool and really, really interesting young character. But I did find that some of the characters to be a bit one-dimensional and a bit just there to serve the purpose of the message, rather than having real characters in the film, if that makes sense. That's what bothered me about it. Not the ideology of the film, by the way. Just to make that abundantly clear. But some of the characters felt like they were just there to preach whatever was written on the page to you, you know? And sometimes I like it coming out of real characters and real dialogue. So yeah. Anyway, I just remembered that I did watch that.
Cool. If I've got time to mention it, actually, if we're going to cram in just additional stuff that we have seen, just because it's so good and I've got to give it a mention before we finish if I can. But I saw Russell T Davies. He did an excellent mini-series recently enough, which I'm sure people have probably heard about because it's getting great reviews anyway, called It's a Sin, which is about the 80s AIDS epidemic in the UK. And yeah, it's just brilliant. It's just really sort of profoundly moving at times, and then it's quite sweet and it's quite funny at other times. And he does such like an efficient job of writing it. Like I think it's about 5 episodes long. 5 episodes long, and each length about 45 minutes. And he manages to kind of do in that time what most American dramas sort of fail to do in 5 seasons. Like he just you feel really invested in the characters and you kind of know them inside out by the time it's finished. But yeah, it's just a really great bit of television. Well worth checking out. I don't know if anyone listening has actually seen it and they loved it. Then I'm a big fan of Russell T Davies and his writing. He also did another great mini-series worth checking out called Second Coming, where he's got his ex-Doctor Who star, Christopher Eccleston. He plays a man who may or may not be Jesus, who's returned to the UK, which sounds like a bit of a nuts idea, but it's done in such a great way. It's brilliant. It's been a big fan of his.
It reminds me of that movie, The Last Man on Earth. Have you ever seen that?
Last Man on Earth? I'm not sure if I have, actually.
Very, very small independent film, just a group of friends getting together for like dinner or something.
Yeah.
And one of the characters starts to tell a bunch of stories, and you start to realize that the guy is like immortal or really, really old. And then it's kind of left ambiguous or up in the air that he may be Jesus. Like it's quite interesting. It's well written.
Yeah.
Very low budget, but it's cool.
Nice.
Anyway.
Yeah. Russell T Davies is great. Yeah. I've always been a big fan of his. So lots of his stuff's worth checking out. Obviously, his Doctor Who run. I think Midnight that he wrote, that's probably my all-time favourite Doctor Who episode. It's very good.
So, another little bit of news, perhaps, for the podcast is I did leave out one thing that I could have talked about, but I may talk about now on another episode in a new segment that we want to start doing called The Binge, where we pick perhaps a TV show or anything that we've binged, and we kind of dedicate one of the weekly episodes to just, or at least a good chunk, maybe half an hour or so of the weekly episodes to discuss. And I think next time I'll discuss WandaVision. I have a lot of thoughts. Cool. I watched it all, and before the finale came out, I rewatched all of it in a binge. And I have thoughts. I thought it was one of the best things Marvel have done on screen yet.
Great.
Slight disappointment with the very end, but amazing show throughout. Very creative. Not at all what you expect. Definitely heavily influenced by some of the drug-fueled comics that I've read over the years, which makes for unpredictable TV. But it was really good, and hopefully that we can make that little segment a thing on the podcast in the future once we these shows start coming out on Disney Plus as well. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is starting next week, so I'm gonna bore you over the next few weeks with this with this Marvel content, Dino. Anyway,
cool.
We could start doing that. Stay tuned.
Yeah. I might get some fresh voices doing that as well, might we, as well? Because if we're going to do that segment, we were thinking that whoever recommended the binge to us could also be that. You could have just a bit of a break from it being this pairing and maybe listen to some other voices as well. That'd be nice.
Exactly. Because, I was talking to a friend who was also binging WandaVision, and we were theorising back and forth and chatting about it, who also has a knowledge of the comics as well. And we'll get another couple of voices onto the show as well. And you're watching The Expanse as well, which was recommended by another of our friends.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's definitely be a choice.
So I think that little segment will be cool for the show. So stay tuned.
Cool. And I don't know. Are we coming? I guess we should come to a close now. Maybe reaching the end.
Is it time for perhaps my recommendation for you for next month?
Yes, why not? Actually, yeah, it's a good idea. Considering you're still working your way through yours, so I'll give me a choice. That'd be nice.
I guess while I work my way through mine, which we can get to maybe in 2 weeks, and then we can talk about this recommendation I have for you in another 2 weeks after that. But this time, well, actually, last time I also got you to read something, but this time I'm going to get you to read something again.
Good. I'm happy to do that.
I was thinking this time we're going to read something. Well, anyway, the recommendation you gave me was watching something, but I'm going to get you to read something. Outcast, which is a very cool comic book series. It's quite short. It's 47 or 8 issues, thereabouts. You can get it all on Comixology. You can read it all online by certain means if you wish. But it is written by Robert Kirkman, who is the creator of The Walking Dead.
Walking Dead, yes.
And this one deals more with, I was about to say it's more supernatural than The Walking Dead, but The Walking Dead has zombies. But, you know, this one is more demons and possession, demonic possession. And this one guy who seems to have an ability to exorcise demons from people. And gradually we kind of learn why, and there's a bit of magic, and it's quite subtle. But the thing that keeps you reading are the characters. The characters are great. And he is excellent at that kind of the comics writing mechanics of like the A plot, B plot, and C plot that just keeps you turning the page and keeps you wanting to go to the next issue once an issue ends. So like each issue will end on the cliffhanger, which becomes the main plot of the next issue, and then that ends on a cliffhanger, and then it just spirals on from there. It's a great read. I read the whole series in maybe 2 days, so you'll probably fly through it. So yeah, Outcast by Robert Kirkman.
Great. Look forward to checking that out.
Aye. So I think we could wrap it up for this week, Dean. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. So tune in next week. And then, yeah, if you're fans of the show, if you're enjoying listening, then by all means, please help support us by either leaving us a nice review if you can. Just spread the word to friends about the show if you're enjoying it, and hopefully you can tell them that there's not going to be as long a wait this time round, that we'll actually have more content on a regular basis. And if you're feeling extra generous, then you can also donate to us through there's a link in the description of our podcast as well. But yeah, thanks for listening.
Follow us on Spotify, on Red Circle, on Apple Music, and all the good stuff. And we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
See ya.